Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. I think this is my third video in my fall gardening series on growing fall crops, cool weather crops. I'll be doing a whole series on it. If you want to subscribe, the playlist is in the video description. So today we're going to be talking about broccoli or cauliflower or cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and then kale, and we also have lettuce and mustard greens over there. A couple of things. So when you're starting your cool weather crops in the fall, they're going from the heat of the summer into the frost. So they're going to germinate quickly. They all grow quickly. You can really get them started now in August. I'm in Maryland Zone 7, so you sort of have to adjust depending on where you are. If you're really in the hotter temperatures of the south, you got to wait a couple of weeks. If you're up north more, you could have started earlier, but I guess this will benefit you more next year. So the reason I say that is when the ground is warm, you can seed start anything in the ground if you have space. Now, I like to start the brassicas in containers. Reason being that is if I start them now, they're going to germinate, they're going to do well, but I have snails and slugs that will come in and quickly eat them down. So if I seed start them, get them to about this size, a greater chance that they're going to survive, number one. Number two, I like to seed start them because I don't have room in my garden right now. So these are about, I don't know, 6 weeks old. By starting your Brussels, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, those four in these containers, you're going to get a little savings in time, so to speak. In Maryland Zone 7, I have a long season, but if you have a shorter season, meaning the hard frosts roll in really quickly, then you're going to want to do this. This way, they're going to get to mature size, to harvest size, before those heavy freezes and frosts come in. These plants can all take light frosts. So that's some of the reason that I recommend starting in these containers. The other thing that's really important is container size. You don't want to start Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower in containers that small. They're going to get root bound. The roots are going to be very tightly coiled. When you plant them into the ground, they're going to have more green growth, but not enough roots to support them, so they're going to grow more slowly. So I highly recommend starting them in larger containers like this, and you want to get them out into the ground after they germinate in about 4 to 6 weeks. I sell all these supplies at my seed shop. I sell these larger containers if you want to pick those up. So the Brussels sprouts, I don't know if they're 5, 6 weeks old, a little bit coiled, not so bad, perfect size to go right into the garden where I need them to go. Second tip with container size, these have been all started outdoors. You don't need to be in grow lights. Look how big the containers are. This is kale. This has been sitting on the northeast side of my house, so it gets some morning sun, but it doesn't get that direct afternoon sun. You do not want your black cells of any size sitting in the full southern western sun. They're going to bake, they're going to get beat up. Look how nice these look. Really healthy, growing nicely. In about a week or two, these are going to be ready to be popped in and replace my other kale plants. This is mustard greens that have been sitting more in the sun, and yeah, they're doing okay, but they're beat up and they're burned and they're just, you know, having more of a struggle because they're sitting in that sun. So I hope that makes sense. If you're going to start these outdoors in cells, which you can, keep them on the northeast side of your home or wherever where they get morning sun but they don't get that baking afternoon sun. So this is how I like to get these started. This is lettuce. Lettuce I don't mind starting in the smaller cells. I grow them to about this size and then I pop them in. Alright, so again, if you have the room, you can start any of these by seeds in the ground. Just caution, you know, possible slugs, snails, or birds coming in and pecking down the germinating brassicas. That's the beauty of fall gardening, is that these are going to grow really fast because of the warmth, which means you're going to really get what you want for harvest come those hard frosts. I can't really grow cauliflower and broccoli here in the spring because, one, the ground is cold, so they're not growing as fast. Two, when they start forming those heads, then the warm weather rolls in, warms up the soil, and instead of getting nice compact broccoli heads or cauliflower heads, they want to flower because it's so warm, and they loosen up, they flower, and I don't get these really nice heads of broccoli or cauliflower. So the fall garden works really well for me here in Maryland Zone 7. So if I'm going to get the Brussels sprouts in, I want to give them about 2 feet between each plant. They get really large. I'm also going to have that white butterfly that's flying around coming and laying eggs on here of the green cabbage worm or green worms. They're going to devastate the leaves. So I may have a strategy of putting them in here. This is my circular fire pit with ladder mesh, and I'm going to drop an ag fabric dome over here. I've done that with kale earlier in the season. Spray these, put them in, put the dome over it. The reason you spray now is just in case there's some insect eggs on there or whatever. But I want to protect these from that white butterfly that you'll probably see flying around as we're doing this video. You can do the same thing with broccoli. In here I would put 1, 2, 3 Brussels sprouts, and then maybe I would do one, just them, nothing else. If I was going to put broccoli in here instead, I would do 1, 2, 3, 4. These can be a little bit more grow more closely together, maybe 12 inches if you can really manage it, but maybe 18 inches is best. Same thing, broccoli, cauliflower about 18 inches apart, Brussels sprouts about 2 feet apart. Cabbages, depending on their size, anywhere from 18 inches to 24 inches apart. They would go right into this class too. If I was doing cabbage here, I would do 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to put the dome over it. Kale, I mean, you can, put them 6 inches apart if you want to, but about 1 foot apart works really well. Put them where you want to. Mustard greens, lettuce, those are going to be a subject of a different fall gardening video. They just grow differently, so we'll talk about them before. So I will give you some basics. Please check out the playlist, because the playlist is going to show you Fall Gardening 1 and Fall Gardening 2. The soil setup is the same. The spacing I already covered. This gives you all the information you need for getting, again, Brussels, broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower. I think I got all 4 of them into the ground. So I'll show you some planting examples if you want to see those, but those are the key facts that I really wanted to show you. It's so important to grow these in larger containers. Don't let the root systems really get constrained. Don't put them in the baking hot sun. And the reason that you would grow them in here is because you don't have room outdoors yet, or you have, a lot of snails and slugs that will come in and eat those down. All right, let me show you a couple planting examples. This is my kale. It'd be the same thing for collards. Again, I'm going to keep stressing because there's a lot of new gardeners. Your fall crops, your cool crops can take a frost. The leaves of these plants can freeze through, thaw in the morning, they're going to be fine. So this is a space where I had kale earlier. I'm going to put some back in there. So this, I'm not going to do the transplant right now. I'll just show you the setup because I want these to grow another 7 days, maybe 10 days and get a little bit bigger. But I'm going to put 4 plants into this 6-foot space, possibly 5. Any organic granular that has N, P, and K represented. Doesn't matter what it is, most of them are the same. Just get what's on sale. And I'm going to just sprinkle this across the top. Now, even though I'm not putting the plants in for about 10 days, you can do your granular fertilizer now. And this is the same exact way that I will set it up for the Brussels, the cabbage, cauliflower, and just mix it in going all the way down. Nice, easy setup. If you have compost, you could add compost to what we already did, or you could just use compost about 2 inches across the top, mix it into the top 4 inches. And then all I would do is, sticking with that, 1 foot spacing, I would put 1 right there, this is a little more than 1 foot, 2 right there, 3 right there, 4 right there. And that's going to be my 4 plants. If I wanted to, I could squeeze a 5th one in right there. Plenty of room on this side for air circulation, for birds to get in, maybe peck off some of the caterpillars that are going to come, but they're not overplanted. So it's just going to be a row of 4 going right down the middle. You just pop them in, water them in, they're good to go. After I put them into the ground, I would water them in with any water-soluble fertilizer. I like using fish emulsion. You can check out my video description for my Amazon shop. You can find it there. Or I like using AgroThrive. That's just an alternative if you don't like the smell of the fish emulsion, and that's also in the video description. So that would be the setup for the kale. You can plant these in rows. So these are Brussels sprouts. That's about 2 feet. That's probably what I would recommend if you're just getting started. They get big and they can be difficult to handle sometimes with those caterpillars or even, why am I forgetting it, whiteflies that come in. Again, I'm going to be covering it. But the spacing would look something like this. One about 2 feet, another one between the rows, maybe keep 18 inches. You just want to have good airflow around them, but you really want that space so that birds can get in there, toads can get in there, frogs can get in there, airflow's there. If you put them too closely together, it gets really dense, it gets humid, there's problems with insects and disease, so give them that space. So something like that, and I would go with a handful into the planting hole, just like that. And then just mix it down 4 inches or so. And again, I'm doing this one-handed. Gently break up the bottom. And then just, you know, press it in just like that. If some of the bottom leaves fall off, that's perfectly fine. But I would do that. Let's get rid of the watermelon. Brussels sprout, Brussels sprout. And that would be for 2. But I'm really going to do 3, and I'm going to just make a triangle, and it would look something like this. For broccoli, it would be the same exact way. I would recommend 3 for broccoli or 3 for cauliflower, 3 for cabbage if they're the smaller cabbage. But again, I like to kind of push the limits. I might do 4 in this space, but it would look something like that. If not, just do the rows like I did with the cauliflower, I'm sorry, that I did with the kale for any of these crops, and you're going to be good to go. All right, let me get these planted, the other ones planted, and then we'll wrap up. And I want to talk about soil temperature again and the summer temperatures. So when you're going from summer into fall, you have soil temperature that's easily 80, 90 degrees. So if you're in hotter areas, you can put shade cloth over here, over it. I have plenty of videos on that. That will cool the soil down. You're trying to get the timing down so these plants get a couple of weeks of growing into warmer soil, they get established, and then that cool weather starts rolling in. It's 70, 80 degree days. Soil temperature starts dropping down to the 60, 70 degree mark. That will slow the plant down so that they don't bolt and they don't flower, and you may have to kind of mess around with the timing in your area. So take notes and just, you know, put in a couple of plants, like maybe 4 broccoli, see how these do around August 12th compared to maybe some that you may put in 2 weeks, say on the 26th of August. This way you figure out the timing. Every garden's going to be a little bit different. So these are planted, watered in, you know, 12 to 18 inches apart. It doesn't have to be exact, you know, don't over stress about it, but you want a good spacing, something like this. So once they're watered in, then give them a drink of any water-soluble fertilizer. You don't have to put a whole gallon on, just something like that. And I would do all the plants. And that's all these really need for a couple of weeks. If you want to follow me, I'll show you about ongoing care. That's it. They're good to go. If you're in the hotter areas, maybe use that 50% shade cloth. I'll link the video in there of about shade cloth in the video description. If you're in a cooler area, maybe now's the perfect time, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, but really kind of experiment. Your cool weather crops do really well going from summer into fall, and it's a whole other season a lot of us don't think about. We think about planting in the spring, we think about planting in the summer, then we get tired out from the summer and we don't do a big thing of cool crops. These plants will do really, really well. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and please subscribe. I'll show you how well these plants do, and I'll show you how to take care of your fall vegetable garden.